It's late. Dr. Sebastian Kane toils away at his computer trying to enhance molecular code, but it keeps failing. After a moment of looking at his neighbor undress, he gets up. He paces around frustrated before suddenly managing to engineer the molecular code almost by accident. He immediately calls his partner and ex-girlfriend Linda McKay, who lies in bed with a man. She gets up and answers the call, and he asks who's in bed with her, but he's dismissed. He tells her that he's done it. He's cracked the code. She can't believe it, and he says he'll be there soon so they can start working on it. So they end the call, and she wakes up the man in her bed, Matt, their partner in this experiment. He suggests that they get there together, but she doesn't think it's a good idea. He tells her he's tired of hiding, and she says that she'll tell Sebastian soon, she's just waiting for the right time. Well, Matt argues that there's no right time with Sebastian. Now at the lab, cages upon cages of animals make noise. Some are invisible and shown through thermal heat signatures. Matt's walking around, stopping by an invisible gorilla they've named Isabel. He enters the cage with his heat signature glasses and attempts to give it an injection. But then he's grabbed and hurt before Isabel escapes. Matt runs out and tries to go after her. Instead, he runs into Sebastian, who casually asks if the culprit is Isabel. After he agrees, he grabs a tranquilizer gun and makes his friend a wager that he can get Isabel first. As spoiler alert, Sebastian wins, which does wonders for his already inflated ego. So the doors open and Sarah walks in, asking why he plans to inject Isabel with a serum he's never tested before. He asks if she thinks he's trying to kill Isabel, but she argues it will liquefy her. Linda breaks up their conversation by telling them that the lab's prepped. He rejects Sarah's concerns, which annoys her. Sebastian asks about Linda's new boyfriend, but is offered very little information. Now in the lab, they prepare Isabel for the serum. Sarah lets them know the vitals are normal. Carter, an EMT, comes in ready, and the control room led by lab technicians Frank and Janice monitor the experiment. They inject her and watch as the serum travels up her veins to her heart. Before we go on, like the video, smash the subscribe button, and turn on that notification bell to join our expendable squad. Just as it seems like it's working, Isabel starts freaking out. Her heart grows to enormous sizes, and they begin using a defibrillator on her in an attempt to stabilize her. They're eventually successful, and the gorilla appears on the table in its complete form, able to be seen by all. Now at dinner, they're celebrating, and during the evening, Linda notices that Sebastian isn't at the table, and she finds him outside. She asks why he isn't celebrating, and he admits it feels like it's the beginning of the end. But she argues it's just the beginning, as there'll be data to study. He tells her that he can't stand still and needs the grandeur and spectacle. They reminisce on the past for a moment. And then he tries to kiss her, but she moves away. He's disappointed and leaves. A bit of a sleaze, huh? Now Sebastian lies at a meeting with government officials that they're not quite finished yet. Linda and Matt are visibly shocked because they know he's lying. He's told that he's got more time, but not much, to change their minds about his employment with the US government. Linda and Matt ask what he's doing, considering that he lied to the Pentagon. He tells them that he can't have them knowing they're finished just yet, because he's worried they'll take over and kick him out of the project. He tells them they need to move to Phase 3. They say he's crazy for deciding to go into human testings without the Pentagon's knowledge, but he doesn't care. He thinks there's no other way to finish the project right away. And when Linda asks if it's because he wants it to be him, he tells them that it's not about him, it's about them. He convinces them to follow him on his quest for glory. Now after a few days, they're ready to inject the serum into Sebastian's arm. They strap him in, and Linda confirms he's ready for this. And he says yes without hesitation. He injects himself and lies there waiting for results. Nothing's happening, and they think they've failed. But then he starts feeling something, and soon he starts convulsing. He starts breaking down as they prepare to use the defibrillator on him. As they're about to shock him back to life, he starts calming down and stabilizing. Soon, he's just a skeleton before disappearing completely. So later that night, he's sleeping. Linda sleeps on the side, and Matt comes and wakes her up. He tells her everything's going better than expected. Sebastian wakes up, gets out of bed, walks into the common room with Linda and Matt, and messes with the team, changing positions, making them guess where he is. Eventually, Frank grabs infrared goggles and locates him. Now wearing a coat, he walks towards a room where he'll stay and be monitored. Linda and Matt leave Sarah alone at the lab for the first watch. So Sebastian's walking around the lab before stepping into the control room where Sarah's sleeping. He starts touching her, unbuttoning her shirt. He aggressively feels her up to the point of waking her up. She looks around, knowing he's there, looking at his bed and seeing no heat signature. Then as she continues looking, she sees him return to bed. Now the next day, she tells Linda and Matt, but they're unsure because she's not entirely sure about the whole thing. Matt asks about his first night, and he says he was restless before repeating his lie of getting coffee to Matt. Sarah removes the attachments from Sebastian, but she's uncomfortable now. He asks if she's okay, but she plays it off as calmly as possible. Now, while looking at things under a microscope, Sebastian plays a trick on Linda by moving her drink around. Eventually, she realizes and calls him out. He comes onto her and aggressively flirts with her. Uncomfortable, she starts trying to leave, and he suggests she figure out what it's like to make love to an invisible man, and she argues it would be like old times considering he was never around. He gets too intimate with her and she leaves. Now on the following day, they prepare for the next step. They inject him, but immediately he tells them that something's not right. He's convulsing, and they try to strap him in tighter, but it's not working. He breaks free. They try to hold him down, but he punches and kicks him, eventually falling to the floor. He gets up and hangs on Linda, afraid. He's put back on the table, and all the progress made of bringing him back is gone. He's invisible again. So Sebastian wakes up with Linda by his side, and she tells him they need to tell the others and figure out what to do. And he also tells her they need to make something in the meantime. They make a mask with a breathing tube in it to ensure it looks like he's a fully fledged person. They cut out holes and make a slit where the mouth is. He wears sunglasses and looks like a human again, kinda. Okay, not really, but hey, the 2000s plastic surgery clearly didn't meet the moment. So Linda and Matt are trying to figure out where they went wrong, but they can't figure out anything. Days have passed and Sebastian's struggling. They carry him as he's weak, unable to walk after so many tests. He throws up and lashes out, telling them that he can't take anymore. Linda and Matt go searching for him. He goes to his home and grabs some things before seeing his neighbor undressing in the window like he does almost every night. So he goes to her apartment and knocks on the door, and sneaking in while she inspects who's knocking. He watches her as she brushes her hair before moving her mirror, freaking her out. She stands up in the middle of the room looking around and he forces himself on her. Now Linda arrives at his home and looks around. She sees he's taken off the mask. So Sebastian, having just finished with his neighbor, sees her in his apartment. She phones Matt and tells him he was there, so she leaves to continue her search, and Sebastian sneaks back into his apartment. Now Matt gives everyone a gun to tranquilize Sebastian if they find him. Carter thinks they're overreacting, but Matt and Linda argue that if he's discovered, they're screwed. Sebastian tells them that nobody will find out, revealing he's there. Linda and Matt ask what's wrong with him, and he says he was getting stir-crazy, so he went to his apartment. Linda calls BS, but he fights back saying he's in charge, so he makes decisions. And while she says he is the leader, she'll tell the committee about what's happened if he leaves again. Now he doesn't believe her. She tells him to try her. Now Sarah asks Linda if the committee knows what they're doing, and she reveals that they don't, causing Sarah to panic. Lynn tells her she's fine. She didn't know, but that doesn't quell any fears. Matt asks if she thinks Sarah will squeal. She tells him she won't, and she isn't worried about her. She's concerned about Sebastian. She thinks the serum is beginning to affect his mind. So Matt thinks he's cracked the code. But when it ultimately fails, Sebastian's annoyed. Linda argues that they're getting closer, but he doesn't care. He's over being a prisoner, a lab rat. Linda confronts Sebastian, telling him that Matt's trying to help and he's just being a prick. But he doesn't care though. He berates Matt, and Linda's patience is wearing thin. He gets aggressive with her, holding her up against the door, kissing her while degrading her, and she leaves angry. Now that night, Sebastian fixes the cameras to show him there at all times. He leaves and goes to Linda's apartment, where he learns of her and Matt's relationship. He breaks the glass as they start making out on her bed. Matt can't see anything, causing Linda to call and see if Sebastian is still there. Confused to learn he is, she drops it. Sebastian, now back at the lab, is angry, fuming at the discovery he's made. Now in a fit of rage, he kills the invisible dog for barking too much. Totally normal stuff. Now in the morning, Sarah discovers the dead dog and immediately asks if Sebastian noticed anything unusual the night before. He acts dumb. Matt, Linda, and Sarah review the footage of Sebastian sleeping. They take the footage at face value, unsure of what's going on. So at her home, Linda feels a presence and thinks Sebastian's there. She moves around the house trying to find him, throwing a sheet in the air before leaving outright afraid. She's constantly looking around for any sign of his presence. She drives to the lab to see if he's really there. His bed is empty, and she notices what he's done with the cameras. They call everyone in, and as they arrive, Sebastian rushes inside to hear what they're saying. Linda and Matt have decided to go to the committee. He follows them to the head of the committee's home and listens as they confess everything. And after they leave, he enters his home and cuts his phone lines, and the door lures the man outside. And while he lights his pipe, he blows smoke, revealing Sebastian. So he pushes his boss into the pool before jumping in with him and drowning him by holding him down. Now on the next day, Linda and Matt wonder why they've heard nothing from Kramer. And when she calls to find out, she learns he's dead. She tries to make another phone call, but the lines are dead also. Then while trying to leave, their codes are rendered invalid. Frank checks the system and they realize the only person with access remaining is Sebastian. And on their way to confront them, Janice goes back to get glasses and on her way out is attacked by Sebastian, who ultimately kills her. They enter Sebastian's room but find it empty. He talks to him over the intercom, saying that he can't let them take away his power. He admits killing Kramer, and once he signs off, Linda realizes Janice isn't with him. They run and search for her, but find her dead, stuffed in a locker. Now they need to figure out what to do, and Linda asks Frank to try to regain their access while they prepare to try and catch him. Matt and Carter search for him based on what Linda sees on the monitors, but she loses him. Now they think they found him, but when Matt inspects, he finds it's just a vent blowing hot air. However, when he turns, he sees Carter being killed before his eyes. Matt starts shooting, revealing him on top of the vents. He drops Carter, who falls and hits his head, causing him to bleed out. So now Sebastian starts going after Matt and eventually traps him. Linda sees no other option but to help him. She leaves the lab and goes after Matt, who's struggling to fend Sebastian off. He uses the goggles, but there are too many heat signatures. So instead he uses the fire hydrant to find him. And after getting attacked, Linda grabs him and drags him to the other side. Meanwhile, Frank and Sarah try to help Carter. Sarah goes to find blood while Frank puts pressure on Carter's wounds. So Sarah goes and grabs blood bags. But on her way out, the door closes. Panicked, she opens the bags, throwing blood everywhere to see where he might step, but nothing happens. Thinking she's safe, she tries to leave. But then he makes his presence known. She throws blood on him before he pushes her to the ground. Sarah attempts to tranquilize him, but he gets the upper hand and shoots the dart into her chest and then snaps her neck once she passes out. Now Frank, holding a dying Carter, is approached by Linda and Matt. Carter dies, and the three run off in search of Sarah. They find the room with a bloodied floor. Before they enter, Matt grabs the fire extinguisher and starts spraying. Linda notices the drag marks and finds Sarah in the fridge, dead. Frank's still spraying, asking what's going on before realizing Sarah's dead. Linda and Matt watch as Sebastian comes up from behind and stabs Frank. Now Matt runs out to see if Frank's okay and is stabbed as well. Linda goes to his side, but they're both locked in the fridge as he turns the temperature down to freezing levels. Linda looks at Matt's wounds and duct tapes him up. So Linda tries to keep Matt awake, but he's struggling and eventually passes out. She tries to hit the fridge window, but it's impenetrable. Defeated, she falls to the floor and looks at Matt dying and Sarah dead before getting a plan. She takes a cabinet handle and some wire and attaches it to the defibrillator. Meanwhile, Sebastian mixes and sets off an explosion. Linda gets the door open with her makeshift magnet and drags Matt out. She ends up creating a contained fire to help him get warm. Now on his way out, Sebastian makes it so an insane amount of explosives are about to go off. He leaves for the elevator, and just before it closes, Linda comes around the corner and uses a makeshift flamethrower, singeing him, never relenting on the flames. Eventually, he shed off all the clothes and his mask and runs out of the fire. With one final burst left, she sets off the sprinklers and looks around for Sebastian, who's sneaking up behind her. And as she turns, he hits her, sending her to the floor. He's pulling her hair and doing anything to kill her, like standing on her throat. Then Matt saves the day, hitting him with a crowbar. And as they walk away, Sebastian tries one final time to kill him. But Matt is too fast and sends him into an electrical socket which electrocutes him. So they go to the lab and see the ready-to-go explosives. They run for the ladder in the elevator. They start to climb as the explosion goes through the lab and up the elevator shaft, sending the elevator zipping past them. Once it all subsides, the elevator plummets down again. It manages to narrowly miss them. And as they continue climbing, however, Sebastian reappears and drags Linda down. The elevator plummets and gets stuck again. He's gonna kill her, but first, he wants a kiss. Matt's powerless and can't help her, but she notices something. She grabs onto the cable, and after she's done kissing him, she hits the switch and detaches the elevator from the cable, and watches him fall to his hopeful end. Considering the fire, I'd say it's likely his end. So the two are safe and sound from the lab and Sebastian, but are forever scarred. Hollow Man was released in 2000 by Sony. It starred Elizabeth Shue, Kevin Bacon, and Josh Brolin. What would you do if you were invisible? Let us know with the hashtag CinemaRecap in the comments.